Hey everybody, it's PJ from Saber Tactical and Donnie FL. What I'm going to be doing today is a little surgery on the boss's FX Panthera Compact Hunter. In this case, we've got a 2-tank version, and while it's an awesome lightweight gun for getting out in the field and doing some hunting, every once in a while you want to be able to pop it into a tripod or do a little bench work, maybe for sighting in a new scope or something like that, testing tunes out. And so what you want up front is some ARCA Swiss rail. So Saber Tactical has brought us this bad boy. This will look similar to folks who are familiar with the Impact platform. This is an ARCA Swiss rail for the Panthera line. So I'm going to go through the installation on that, but before we get to it, maybe talk just a little bit about some features. It replaces your AR grip mount, which is under the grip, so we'll get to that in a minute. You have same size trigger guard. However, on this version there are cutouts so you can get at trigger adjustments as well as front regulator adjustment. You have a generous cutout here for your air fill. You have QD sling mounts on both sides. You have, and it's a fairly short rail, but full length ARCA right here. And then you also have this center section milled out so you could attach a picatinny rail to the bottom here if you wanted to. This back hole is 1/4-20 for attaching to like a photo tripod. And this front hole, when we get the installation all done, there is a set screw that is nylon tipped so that you can put that in and adjust the depth so that that nylon tip butts up against your front bottle so that it gives us just that extra bit of rigidity out front. So it's an easy installation. It's going to require us to take a few things apart with some Allen keys. So let's get rolling on that. As always, I recommend the use of a magnetic parts tray. Depending on what your shop is like, you may find that a screw goes missing, and there's nothing more frustrating than trying to chase around a screw that clearly has a mind of its own and doesn't want to go back into the installation process. All of the screws in this job, you're going to be reusing the screws that came with your Hunter Compact. So when you get your package, the only screw that's going to be in there is that little nylon tipped set screw that goes at the front of the bottle. So when we take stuff out, we want to make sure this stuff is secured. All right, first thing we need to do is remove the hand grip. In my case, this uses a 5mm hex key. And as all things in the world of YouTube, it's easier to do when you're not trying to film it. So it's pretty common for that screw to stay sort of captive in the grip, and in my mind, that's a good thing. Now, as you look underneath here, you're going to see this screw right there. So we're going to remove that as well. That one's pretty tight in there. So we got this guy, we want to set that right into the magnetic parts tray. And then we have 3 screws on the bottom that need to come out. Got this guy right here, kind of a longer one. And it doesn't really matter what order we take these out in. The front ones are shorter, so should be fairly easy to keep track. There's only 3. So we have a second short screw. And then you have the stock trigger guard assembly. You're going to figure out where you're going to put this. Maybe back in the original box it came in, or maybe you have a little parts bin for FX parts. I know I do. But we want to set this apart somewhere safe. And now we get back to our rail. So I think the easiest way to go with this is to put that bolt that sits under the trigger guard back in place. So I'm going to do that one first. Because that's kind of at the back end and is, you know, sort of the whole pivot. And what I do when I install a rail like this is I only tighten it until I feel it bottom out, but I don't actually put any torque on it. So this rail will still move, and I'm going to do that with each of these screws so that I get them all in place. Then I'm going to make sure it's all settled and lined up. Then I can start tightening them down. Nothing we're doing today requires what I would consider like a tremendous amount of torque. These should not be gorilla tight, if you follow me. So I'm going to take the long screw, that's the next one moving forward. And again, I'm just installing that until it touches bottom. I'm not applying any torque. And these screws should go in really easily. And this is, you know, well machined, so there shouldn't be any like drag. If you look and there's any debris in the threads, you want to clean that out, brush that out before you do anything. But this should simply go straight in without any resistance until you kind of get to the bottom. So I'll move forward, and these are actually recessed a little bit inside of this kind of hollow where your fill port would be. You'll notice on this airgun, I do not have a front fill port. We've added a rear bottle, and we've moved this fill port to the back because it has 2 bottles on it. But if you have the front fill on your configuration, you'll see that there's a cutout for it. So you don't have to move it, you just can if you want to. One more screw. Okay, so all of those are just kind of touching the bottom, and you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but there is just the slightest bit of back and forth wiggle. This does need to be tightened down. So what I'm going to do is feel where the rail meets the body of the gun, and I'm going to feel for everything to be perfectly lined up. And basically, I'm going to use my fingers like they're a feeler gauge to get things lined up. And then I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to snug that one down a little bit. I'm going to make sure I'm not off in any of these junctions. I'm going to put a little pressure there. Pressure there. I'm going to come back and put a little pressure on this back one. Oops, wrong tool. I'm going to go back to these front ones. Give it a visual. Everything looks like it's straight. So once we are sure that everything is lined up, we can come back and do kind of a final tighten. So we just want these snug. There is no need to take your Allen wrench and put it on a side and really crank down on them. If you're looking for a more permanent, I'm never going to take this off, I love it so much kind of solution, you could put a dab of blue Loctite on each of these. That is certainly not necessary. It is you could do it. Do not use red Loctite. A dab of blue. Okay. On this back one, I am going to just give it and that might have been a 1/16 of a turn. It was just, let's make sure it's well and firmly seated in there. And then we can go back to reinstalling our grip. You may or may not have installed this style of grip onto this or another system. This is the place where I think there is the greatest potential to do something that might be harmful. And the reason I say that is we are putting this screw on an angle, and we have a steel screw and an aluminum part here, and because it's on an angle, it becomes very easy to cross thread this. And I'd hate to see you do something that would require you to replace this part, because if you cross thread it, it's a problem. I want to get the Allen wrench lined up in the hole there. This in, you want to make sure you're not encountering any resistance at all as you screw it in until you get to the bottom. So you should feel that resistance kind of build slowly. And if you feel any resistance before you think that thread is down and engaged, back it out and double check it, because like I said, steel screw, aluminum part, it is fairly easy to cross thread that, and then you have essentially, unless you have the technology to tap and re-thread that hole, you're basically replacing this part, which there's no reason to do that. Be careful, go slow, do it, get it right the first time. So here we have it, folks. This is an installed ARCA rail for the Panthera. This will work with any of the front bottles like this. Gives you a nice handhold. You could attach any number of ARCA accessories on there. Like I said, you could put a pick rail down here. Saber Tactical, we now have an ARCA to picatinny adapter. You could put that on there if you wanted picatinny section. You could put a window saver on there. You could put it on a tripod. A lot of bipods have ARCA Swiss connectors. There's a whole bunch of ways now that you can use that. And you have a nice flat spot there if you're out in the field shooting and you're uncomfortable, as you probably should be, putting your bottle directly on a fence or a rusty gate or something like that. This is going to provide you with that little bit of protection. So you'll just have to excuse me if I'm biased, but I think this is a pretty well thought out product. And if you've got this rifle, it might be something you want to look at, maybe add to your holiday gift list. Until the next video, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in and watching. If you have questions about the installation, put them in the comments so we can try and get those answered for you. And until the next one, everybody, shoot safe, shoot straight, and we'll see you around.